Hello. Sorry, I'm a bit late on the streaming, but yeah, I have a new computer and I don't agree completely with it. For instance, you can probably hear my voice that sounds a bit different. That's because, well, for some reason it doesn't want to take audio from the capture card and my USB headphones at the same time. So I'm having to use the computer's internal microphone array and RTX voice, or RTX broadcast as it's called now, because camera is in it as well. But yeah, should I test this? There we go. Recenter it? No? Okay. Well, let's just stack that. But yes. So if you don't hear what I'm saying, it's because NVIDIA didn't think that my voice was a voice. So let's get to this. Right. I spent some time trying to figure out what the evidence would be for this, which I basically rage quit on last time. And after a lot of time, I finally looked up the tutorial and then realized why. You see, when I returned, he was dead. Blood was streaming from a cut on his forehead. Now, I thought, sure, like, just there was no blood. But no. That's not at all what I was supposed to react to. I was supposed to react to the fact that he supposedly had a hat on. Over his face. How was I supposed to know that? Or how was he supposed to know that blood was streaming if there was a hat on the wound? Instead of, the wound not streaming blood. Let's see if this works this time. Objection! Oh, it does. Mr. Wright, if I may. Yes? Take a look at this photograph of the crime scene. See the victim here? He's wearing a hat. I wouldn't think you could see blood on his forehead. Good point. Justice. Next time you point out an inconsistency, put a little more oomph into it. Mr. Wright, can you explain this to the court? I forgot to mention something. I was the one who put that hat on his head. You put the hat on the dead man's head? He wore it through our entire poker game. After calling the police, When I returned to the scene, his head was in full view, shining bright just like in this photograph. And I picked his hat up off the floor and put it on his head.
Oh, why do you do a thing like that?
All I can say is, I'm sorry. But that's the only thing I touched at the crime scene. That's also lie, you touched the bottle. So Miss Orley didn't see it? It being the victim's, his head. I'd think not, she was out cold. I believe I was the only one who witnessed his head. Here we go again. Mr. Gavin? Pardon. It just seems that our client is determined to lie his way through this case. Hey, he's still our client, isn't he? I believe that's enough of that. Mr. Gavin? This witness's testimony is more like a travesty. It's riddled with lies. I'm beginning to see how you came to lose your attorney's badge 7 years ago. Well, you certainly have a unique way of treating your clients, Christoph. I never knew. I believe it was you who threw the first stone. Mr. Wright, if you intend to ever tell the truth about this case, it's now or never. Don't be misled, I haven't told a single lie here. But... But you did, though. You did. Eh? When I noticed the trap, I put the card in the bottle to dispose of it. And when I put the hat on the victim's head, let's just say I had a reason for doing that as well. A reason? That reason is right here. Your phone. Your cell phone. What? That night, recall that I spoke with defense attorney Gavin after calling the police. Just in case, I recorded our conversation. What's this? Now that we're all here, I see no reason why I shouldn't play it back for the court. Christoph, I seem to be in a bit of trouble. What's this? Game not going well? Something like that. That gentleman who challenged you, he turned out to be good? He turned out to be dead. Someone hit him. Hard. You mean someone cracked that flawless bone? The bone china pate? Pate? It wasn't you, was it? Me? Please. The cops should be here in a minute. I'm in your hands. Should it come to that? Oh, it was supposed to be plate, okay. Bone china plates? A kind of porcelain, very smooth and shiny. And not plate, but pate. Okay, yeah, no, it was pate. I believe he was referring to a certain gentleman's balding forehead. The court appreciates the defendant's discretion in not indicating my forehead. Wait a second, something's not right about that phone call. So after Gavin ate dinner with you, he left the Borscht Bowl Club. Most certainly. Then how did he know? When did he see this bone china pate? Oh, That's right. Yes. That was when I began to see my good friend in a different light. Troubled, I returned to the crime scene. And when I spotted Mr. Smith's head again, I realized exactly what was wrong. Well, Mr. Gavin, the stage has been set. Perhaps you would like to explain this to the court. Exactly how did you come by your privileged knowledge of the victim's head? So, this is your reason. The reason why you put the victim's hat back on. Your point, Mr. Gavin? It's come down to this, has it, Phoenix Wright? Like, you could just explain, I think. Order! I will have order, Mr. Payne.
Yes, Your Honor.
I believe this court has been left with no other choice. Are you prepared to hear defense attorney Gavin's testimony?
Well, as the prosecutor,
Very well, we'll break for 10 minutes. After which, Mr. Gavin will take the stand for a cross-examination. Are we all clear on that? Crystal clear, Your Honor. Very well. This will be the final recess for the day. April 20th, 2:32 p.m. District Court, Defendant Lobby Number 3. Mr. Gavin and Mr. Wright are both in the judge's chamber. Who'd have thought today would turn out like this?
May I?
Huh? What?
Hello, sir. Please pick a card.
What's all this about? Is this one okay?
Excellent. I have a message for you. The last hand is about to be played. You need a trump card to make it.
A trump card?
The card you have chosen is magical. Use it wisely, and the game is yours. That's all.
An ace. Where do I remember that card from? It's the 5th ace.
Mr. Smith's hand has 3 aces and Mr. Wright's 2. It's 5 aces in all. It's true. I've seen it. The 5th ace. There was cheating. I swear to you.
The missing 5th ace. Wait, this blotch of red. Is this blood?
You have your trump card. Now it's up to you to cut the deck and draw the truth. My father's fate is in your hands. I know you can do it.
Oh, hi, Phoenix daughter. I'm sorry I didn't know it was you right away. Probably should have given you another voice then. This bloodstained card is my trump card for finding the truth. I fell deep into thought as my mind raced to understand what this all meant. That girl, I'd seen her recently, but where? Oh, I don't know where. Maybe, she told you that you defended her father? I follow. Come on. That's when I made the connection. No, it was a little bit prior. Bloody ace added to the court record. April 20th, 2:45 p.m. District Court, Courtroom Number 2. Court will now reconvene. Defense Attorney Christoph Gavin, will you please take the stand? Now then, if you would, Mr. Payne.
Yes, Your Honor. Well, Mr. The witness state his name and occupation.
Will Mr. Gavin state his name? Yes. Is this farce necessary, Your Honor? Believe me, far stranger things have gone on in this courtroom. Fine, I'll play along. First, there's one thing we need to have made clear. How did you know about the secret beneath the victim's hat? By secret, I'm guessing he means the fact that Mr. Smith was bald. Forgive my curiosity, but what is it about this fellow's head? Your Honor seems to have an inordinate interest in it. Phoenix called an objection. Why are you standing there? Sure, why not? I mean, just... Sure. I wouldn't call it inordinate, Mr. Gavin. Mr. Wright? What do you think you're doing, Wright? Well, things sure look different from the other side. You know what I mean, Apollo. Speaking of looking from the other side, let's consider something for a second. The victim wore that hat all night, never once taken it off, except for that one time. That one time being the instant he was hit. Oh. When Mr. Wright returned from reporting the crime, the hat was lying on the floor. Mr. Wright picked it up and placed it on the victim's head. In other words, in order to have seen Mr. Smith's bald head, you would have had to be at the scene of the crime at the time of the crime. In other words, you'd have to be the real killer, is what you're trying to say. Not bad, Apollo. Mr. Gavin? I'm afraid that I haven't been entirely honest with the court. We've noticed. Oh, what? Oh, I assure you, I had the noblest of intentions. I did it all to protect my client, Mr. Wright. Yet I'm afraid in the current situation I see little reason to hide anything. Very well, allow me to tell you the truth of what happened that night. Finally, you may begin your testimony. Tell us how you were involved in the events of that fateful night. Before that, I will... No, not that. No, not that either. Duplicate. Edit. Yes, there we go. And I will be right back in just a tiny while. With water. The rage I sensed. Oh! Yeah, that's rage. Screen shaking. The rage I sensed in that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window in the hideout. It must have been right after the murder took place. The victim was dead, as he appears in this photo. A bald head and an unconscious girl, and Wright holding the bottle in his hand. I sensed that was not the best place for me to be at the time, and so I left. That's when the call came from Wright.
So, you witnessed the murder?
For better or worse, I missed the actual moment of the deed. Mr. Gavin, may I remind you that you are on Mr. Wright's defense team. Your testimony is clearly disadvantageous to your client. What else could I say? I'm standing on the witness stand after all. So you are, Mr. Gavin. And you had to testify as you just did. You had to tell them you saw the scene of the crime through that little window. Mr. Wright? You had to say that. Because that was the only probable window of opportunity, right, Apollo? Oh. Mr. Wright, the defense should do the cross-examination, not the defendant. Mr. Justice, are you prepared? Yes, Your Honor. I'm fine. Can't believe I'm going up against Mr. Gavin. This trial is getting weirder and weirder. Yes, well, I guess it's tradition that you lose your mentor as soon as you become an attorney. Who'd have thunk it? The rage I sensed in that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. That man, you mean Mr. Smith? He was different from the other customers, his aura, shall we say. I knew he was a serious poker player, but it was more than that.
So then, you knew the true nature of your client's job?
Of course, but I also knew he wasn't engaged in gambling, which would be illegal. Well, it makes sense that he'd know. They were friends after all. Worried for my friend, I returned to the club. You see, I feared this Mr. Smith might be someone coming to settle an old score. I see. What happened then? I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window to the hideout. The little window? You mean the one used to keep watch? Ah, the stairs. Could I get that as evidence? Yes, a relic of the ancient past. The Black Marketeers used it, I believed. Why did you go through the trouble of peeking in through the window? Wouldn't it have been easier to just open the door and go into the room? I didn't want to upset Wright, you see. Upset Mr. Wright? Yes, what if my fears had been unfounded? I'd been walking in on their match. Bad form, to say the least. So far, everything he's saying makes sense. It must have been right after the murder took place. How do you know it was right after the murder? Really, no need to shout, Justice. I was just getting to that part of my testimony. Ah, there he is. The coolest defense in the West. We know and love. Even when you're standing up there on the witness stand, some things never change. I was afraid you'd change too, right? But you haven't. You and that overbearing personality of yours. With friends like these who need enemies. The victim was dead, as he appears in the photo. By photo, you mean the second photograph of the crime scene. Precisely. You see, he wasn't wearing his hat then. I saw his head when he was dead. And then Mr. Wright came along and replaced his hat.
Can you describe the scene of the crime for us?
A bald head, an unconscious girl, and Wright holding a bottle in his hand. Those were the only three at the scene of the crime? Yes, as far as I saw, at least.
Then we're back where we started. The killer was the defendant, Phoenix Wright. Who else could it have been? But why didn't you talk to the police?
2 reasons. First, I didn't actually witness the very moment of the crime. Second, my office was asked to defend Wright. Even after seeing what I had seen, I couldn't abandon my friend. There must have been someone else there at the moment of the crime. Justice, I just said I saw no one, not a soul. But that goes against what Mr. Wright said. Ah yes, this mysterious fourth person. Who would conveniently be the real killer, I suppose. Glad to see we agree, Mr. Gavin. Let me pose a question then. Tell me, what possible reason did the real killer have to swap cards in the victim's hands? Perhaps you can show us a reason why such a thing would be necessary. How can I show something I can't find myself? Remember, Apollo, the card that was swapped out was the 5th ace. The 5th ace, right. Well, Mr. Justice, the question of why the killer would swap out a card has been raised. Can you point out a reason? Can I check it? I can. A single drop of blood marks the card. Marks the front of the card. I don't know. Can I? I'm gonna say not yet. No, not yet, Your Honor.
Not yet? Ha! Pathetic! Not yet. Try not ever.
Well, Mr. Gavin. Oh, I'm willing to wait for as long as it takes. Great, I don't even know what the heck I'm looking for. Apollo. Yes, sir. Don't forget you already know the answer. You just don't realize it yet. Well, thanks, Phoenix. I would have never guessed. I already know the answer? Take a moment to think it over again, okay? Wow. Even Maya knew more about knew more about how the minds of people work than Phoenix. Wow, I wish she was here instead of Phoenix. I sensed that was not the best place for me to be at the time, so I left. Wouldn't it have been better to wait for the police to arrive? Remember though, by that time I was already Wright's defense attorney. It wouldn't do for me to become part of the investigation. That makes sense. Or does it? I'm confused. Well, what happened next? That's when the call came from Wright. Where were you when the phone call came? I had already left the Borscht Bowl Club by that time. On the phone he asked me to defend him. Naturally, I was surprised. I accepted, however. I couldn't abandon him. So kind of you. So far everything jives with Mr. Wright's testimony, I think. Is it going to be a problem for you to cross-examine your own boss? I'm fine. Who was it that taught me never to pull punches in cross-examination? It was you, Mr. Gavin. I learned it from watching you. Okay, I'm gonna just... Wait, which one was it? Was it this one? So his head. Can you describe the crime scene for us? A bald-head unconscious girl and Wright holding that. Yes. Those were the only 3 at the scene of the crime. Yes, as far as I knew at least. And we're back where we started. The killer was the defendant, Phoenix Wright. Who else could it be? La la. 2 reasons. First, I didn't actually witness the very moment of the murder. Second, my office was asked to defend Mr. Wright. There must have been someone there at the moment of the crime. Just as I just said, I saw no one, not a soul. But that goes against what Mr. Wright said. Yes, this mysterious 4th person is the real killer. Glad to see we agree, Mr. Gavin. Let me pose a question then. Tell me, what possible reason would the real killer have? Oh. Perhaps you can show us. The reason? Yes. The reason the real killer had. 5th ace, right, yes. Show evidence. This is the only thing I can think of doing. Sorry. The defense would like to present evidence to the court. Evidence showing the reason why a card was swapped out. Then go ahead and point out your reason, Mr. Justice. Why did the killer take the 5th ace? My reason is, this. Is that an ace? Why, it's got blood on it! Right next to the spade. What? That's insane! Why wasn't I told about this? Why? Could this be? Could this be the missing 5th ace? Inconceivable. How could you? What are you doing with that card? Well, that's the thing. Why is Mr. Gavin so upset? It's just a fishy card from some fishy girl. Oh, that card? It's mine! That is, I picked it up at the Borscht Bowl Club that night, after the murder had occurred. I gave it to my daughter. Cards are her stock and trade, after all. No, impossible. Unacceptable. The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud. A fraud? How can you be so sure? What? I would think the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the only one who took the real card from the crime scene. The real killer. Allow me to elaborate. What if this trace of blood was the reason? The reason for the killer taking the car from the scene of the crime. Where are you going with this? Take another look at the photo at the victim's head. At the moment of the crime, his hat fell to the floor, and a trickle of blood ran from his forehead down the back of his head. Couldn't a drop of that blood have fallen onto one of the cards? I suppose. The killer then took the card to hide the blood. Regardless, that evidence is non-permissible. Oh? Right. Regardless of how you wasted the last 7 years, you used to be a liar. You know what a serious crime is. It is to conceal evidence. Oh, we can discuss the finer points of our legal system later. What's important now is that I've answered your question. What are you talking about? You wanted to know why the killer would have taken a car from the crime scene. And now I've told you. That one drop of blood could have been decisive evidence, you see. This is baseless conjecture. Baseless. Oh, I assure you, it's quite based. What? It's amazing, really, how a single drop of blood on a single card can lead us to the truth. It's quite simple. Well, Apollo? Well, yes? Try picturing the scene of the crime in your head. The murder took place in the hideout. The body of the luckless victim was found at the poker table. And before the killer swapped the card out, there was a single card with a drop of blood on it in the victim's hand. Given this, there is one decisive problem with this scene. Well, what is it? Let's keep it simple, shall we? Given that there was a drop of blood on a card, whose position in this diagram doesn't fit? The victims, the killers, the witness? The second witness? Whose position doesn't fit with the bloody card? What do you mean? Well, I guess he was slumped back in his chair. He was slumped back like that. The card was all the way over here, laying face down, meaning that he would have needed to bled here from over here. So I'm gonna say victim. Well, isn't the victim's position the problem? I don't follow your logic, Mr. Justice. Well, look, the victim was struck on the head, sending him back in his chair. You'd think any blood would fall behind the body, not onto the table in front of him. Ah. Take a look at the photo again. If he bled in this position, the blood would fall onto the floor, not onto the cards. Why, that's right, so what does that mean? Incidentally, we were sitting in swivel chairs. Swivel chairs? Oh man. Apollo, try turning the chair around. The chair was facing the other way. It would have to be. So we have to assume that the victim's chair was facing away from the table. When Mr. Wright returned from informing the police which way was the chair facing. When I came back to the room, the body was facing as seen in this photo. That would mean the killer turned the chair back around. Let's take the next step. Look at the diagram once more. We know that the victim was facing away from the table at the time of the murder. But this creates another significant contradiction. Again? Let's test your reasoning skills again, shall we? Apollo, whose location on this diagram contradicts our new understanding of the crime? The victims? The killers? The witnesses? The second witnesses? Whose location creates a contradiction if the victim was facing away? Well, basically all of them. But I'm assuming you refer to the killer, right? And I'm also assuming that this would get hard in a while. The victim was struck from the front, correct? Indeed. Well, wouldn't it be hard for the killer to hit him from the front, sitting where his indicator currently is? I would think it'd be quite hard, yes.
Yes, but what you're saying makes no sense. Why would the victim suddenly turn to face the wall in the middle of a game?
I believe a sufficient reason will soon come to light.
What?
There's something in this diagram that makes far less sense, actually. Look at the diagram. Apollo, if the victim was struck while he was sitting, as shown here, where would his assailant be standing? Try marking it on the diagram. What? But there's no room to put a mark where the killer should be. No, exactly. Don't worry, let's think it through and see what we find. We know the victim was facing toward the wall at the time of the crime. That's the only thing we know for sure. Try to forget about everything else. Where would the killer have to be standing to strike our victim from the front? There. In a wall. The killer had to be standing, well, here.
You get points for flair, but that's about all you get.
Thought I was onto something there too.
I hardly need to point out that standing there would be impossible. The victim is facing a solid cupboard. Or are you claiming the killer climbed the cupboard and hit him from above? Ha!
It's simple logic, really. If this was the only place the killer could have been standing, then that means that at the very moment of the crime... Wait, I know. At the moment of the crime, the cupboard wasn't there. What's this now? I mean, that's the only explanation, right, Mr. Gavin? Your Honor, I have a suggestion for the defense. We should arrange to examine the cupboard in the hideout immediately. Bailiff, send a team to the crime scene immediately. Have them try to move the cupboard. Ah, Your Honor? What? There's one more thing your men should look for. Please give this to the bailiff. Yes, I see. You do belong in the courtroom after all, Mr. Wright. I do my best. But let's forge ahead here while we wait. Look at the diagram once again. It's been changed. If the killer was standing here at the time of the crime, then this cupboard wasn't here, which means... Apollo, try moving the cupboard. Thank you! Of course, as you can see, the cupboard was the problem. At the time of the murder, it has to have been as shown here. Now everything is in place to reconstruct the moment of the crime. Oh my! What's this? What is it now? Look at the diagram of the crime scene once more. It appears we've found yet another contradiction. What I believe to be the final contradiction, in fact. Huh? Oh dang! Notice something, Apollo? Our line of deduction is rapidly approaching its logical conclusion. Thank God. Now then, Mr. Justice, please point to the new contradicting indicator. Is it the victim, the killer, the witness, the second witness? Which indicator in this diagram contradicts what we know about the crime? Is it the second witness? It is, right? It is. Yeah. Right? Cause wait, he said he was looking in through the window. There is no place to look in through the window. It's blocked by the cupboard. Oh my. About this cupboard. Are we all okay with assuming it was moved? Sure, why not? Well, if it was, something really doesn't fit. The cupboard would completely cover up the window to the stairs. That's right, someone standing outside wouldn't be able to see in. Someone like Mr. Gavin. What did you say? Oh, it's the coolest defense in the West losing their cool. Don't expect me to play along with your little game, Wright. It's only a game until someone gets killed, Mr. Gavin. And someone was, while the window to that room was blocked by a cupboard. So, Mr. Gavin, perhaps you'd like to explain to the court. Exactly where did you witness the crime scene from? Excuse me, Your Honor. Order. This is a court of law and I will have order. We just now received word from our investigative team at the Borscht Bowl Club. They've examined the cupboard in the hideout room. Oh? And what did they find? Well, Your Honor, it turns out there is a secret passage behind it. What? Ah, yes, I believe I mentioned something of the sort before. You did, didn't you? Yeah. This is one of the tricks to the room many of our regulars know about. I do remember him saying something about that now that he mentions it. A secret passage, it's handy. It's a handy thing to have when you're engaged in legal going-ons. Never know when you might need to duck away from the eyes of the law. So the room has a secret passage. Where does it go? The other side connects to the restaurant above. The underworld bosses could get away from the cops. And enjoy a cold bowl of borscht, no doubt. Just like our killer. You see where a line of simple deductive reasoning has led us, Apollo? I see it, but I don't believe it. That girl wasn't kidding when she said I needed this trump card for the last hand. At the time of the murder, the window was blocked and the victim's hat was only off his head for a few minutes between Mr. Smith's murder and Mr. Wright's return from calling the cops. In other words, the only place anyone could have seen the victim's bald head was from inside the hideout. Well, Mr. Gavin? Come on, say something. He doesn't. Dare I ask what really happened that night? Actually, I think we can probably figure it out ourselves at this point. That night, for whatever reason, our killer had a date with Mr. Smith. A date with destiny. There, he crouched, hidden in the secret passageway behind the cupboard, holding his breath, waiting for just the right moment. Then the chance came, and he took it. Ah! What? Why did you do that? Wait here, I'll get help. I'll get help. Miss Olga Orley was out cold, struck by Mr. Smith. But his time was soon to come. Mr. Wright went upstairs to call the cops, leaving Mr. Shady Smith alone in the hideout with the unconscious dealer. Then our killer stepped out from the secret passage and into the hideout. The victim must have heard the cupboard sliding aside. He wheeled his chair around to look, and after the deed was done, the criminal must have seen the blood on the card. He would have, of course, realized the need to destroy the evidence. That single spot of blood told the whole story of the crime. Too bad for him, he didn't linger any longer in the hideout that night. If he had, he might have noticed the cards on the floor, and the fact that they were all red. Well, it seems this trial has taken yet another turn. I'm truly, truly sorry I had to see this day come, Mr. Gavin. Mr. Gavin? Mr. Payne! Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution will continue its investigation. As for Mr. Phoenix Wright, the defendant, he is hereby cleared of all suspicion. Believe me when I say that I don't believe this is happening, Mr. Gavin. But I'm afraid circumstances call for me to issue a warrant for your arrest immediately. Wait, what? Oh, no need to apologize. I rather enjoyed myself. Not every day you get to witness a legendary attorney's dirty tactics firsthand. Your point, Mr. Gavin? Frankly, Your Honor, I'm shocked that a person of your caliber would be taken in by such a low-grade parlor trick. Excuse me? The defendant is cleared of all suspicion? This is hardly the time for jokes, Your Honor. Mr. Wright hasn't proven anyone's guilt or innocence here. Actually hasn't, no. What he has done is use illegal evidence to put the blame on someone else. And not just anyone else, but me, his own defense attorney. Illegal evidence? Let me ask you, Mr. Gavin, is there still any reason at present to suspect me of wrongdoing? Of course. This bottle, for instance. The bottle of grape juice Mr. Wright was drinking. How do you intend to explain away the fingerprints on the murder weapon. And not just any fingerprints. Am I right, Mr. Payne?
Actually, yes! The fingerprints on the bottle were upside down.
I seem to recall this being an issue earlier. The court and this case demand an explanation. I can think of only one reason why one would hold a bottle upside down. And that is to hit someone with the bottom of the bottle. Well, Your Honor? See how the codfish squirms to the last. Well, Apollo? Yes? Your boss seems awfully concerned about this bottle still. But I'm sure you can come up with a suitable explanation, just like that. Yeah, just like what? Why would anyone grab bottle upside down other than... Don't let him trick you into thinking his explanation is the only legitimate one. Is there really another? Yeah, if he needs to force the car down the bottle. Take another look at the court record. I believe you'll find a simple answer there, in plain sight. Wait, what? No? Okay, maybe not. How about you just say the answer in plain words? I agree, Apollo, I agree.
It would be hasty to deliver a verdict with unanswered questions indeed. Well, Mr. Justice?
Mr. Gavin said that the court and this case demand an explanation. Don't worry. Justice won't leave until justice is done.
Perhaps the defense would care to enlighten the court. What evidence do you have to explain why the fingerprints on the bottle are upside down?
Is it this photo? See how it's lying on the opposite side of the table? Oh, that's the window. I didn't even notice that before. But if Phoenix Wright were to put it there, he would have had to grab it upside down. Right? Right? That is the only other... No! This is the photo that explains it. He had to pick it up from that. It's very difficult to grab it like this from that. You would have to grab it like this. You could not see a thing that I was just doing, but trust me, I was holding my hand upright and upside down. Otherwise you wouldn't get your arm down into the box, right? You wouldn't, like, get your arm, like, down there. Try to pick a bottle up from... Try to just imagine you're picking up a bottle from the floor. You wouldn't go down onto the floor to pick it up right side up. You would just reach down and grab it, like, the simplest way you could. Which would be upside down. Take that! It's actually easier to show you than explain, Your Honor. Place that bottle on the floor next to your chair.
Excuse me? On the floor?
Yes. Now reach down and pick it up. Without getting off your chair. See? You naturally go to pick the bottle by its neck. With your fingers upside down. Look at this photograph taken on the night of the murder. The defendant, Mr. Wright, sat here, playing piano, bottles of grape juice on the floor to the side of his piano bench. He would have naturally picked up the bottles upside down several times.
Wow, I can't believe it was that simple.
Recall our dinner that evening, Christoph? I was drinking my usual juice then, too. Basically, you used the bottle on the table to do the deed. But then you must have remembered. So you went and picked up one of the bottles from under the piano. and you switched the bottles. You took one of Mr. Wright's bottles and made it look like the murder weapon. Order, order, order! What do you have to say to these charges, Mr. Gavin?
Fascinating. So this is the legendary attorney's famed tactic of misdirection.
What?
You claim that I switched the bottle. Where is your proof?
Proof? Well, that's,
As I thought, more baseless conjecture. I'm afraid your bottle of proof is quite empty.
No, it's not. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Your Honor, when you initiated the investigation of the hideout earlier, do you recall I requested an additional investigation? Ah, yes. I have your memo about that here. Retrieve the bottles from under the piano at the Borscht Bowl Club. And here's one of the bottles in question.
What? Are you going to dust that for fingerprints too? I would be surprised if any were on that. If any were on that but his.
Mr. Gavin probably wouldn't make such a novice mistake, true. That bottle won't bear a trace of anything, except a card. Say, Apollo. Yes? Why don't you go ahead and examine that bottle? But why? Just humor me. Mr. Wright, that bottle will solve this case once and for all. What? That's some bottle. Yes, it is. And I know exactly what it's going to contain. There is a card on the inside. That is actually really neat how they've done that. I like it. There's something inside the bottle. Oh. You missed the entire animation of him pulling it out. God damn it. What's this? That card. It can't be. Recall that unpleasant woman's testimony for a moment? Miss Olga Oli? Yes, our little swindling Devochka. That night, I planted the card like I was supposed to. And Wright lost his last hand, just like he was supposed to. And the Smith searched him. But the planted card was gone. The trap failed. Wait, this isn't... You're telling me that this is the planted card you disposed of? The one you mentioned in the piece of testimony? I happened to put my hand in my pocket and found a card. Yes, I snuck a peek at it and found it was the 5 of hearts. I had a feeling something might happen, so I disposed of the card before the game. And before you ask, yes, it was the 5 of hearts that I just pulled out of the bottle. Disposed? Where? There was an empty bottle of grape juice I had been drinking right beside me. I threw the card inside that bottle. And there it is. The 5 of hearts. This is the card. The bottles were swapped. And the only one who could have done that was the 4th person in the club that night. You, Mr. Christoph Gavin. Oh.
That is all.
Is this your idea of revenge, Phoenix Wright?
Revenge?
Revenge for the events that took away your attorney's badge 7 years ago?
My past is like my logic. Straight and true. Nothing's changed. All I did was point the finger of justice in the proper direction.
Fine. I'm glad we could have this little tete-a-tete, right?
This is insane. What about me? I don't get to prosecute anyone.
No, you don't. I believe this time we've finally come to the end of our trial. Mr. Payne, do you have a report for us on Christopher Gavin?
He's admitted everything. We're processing his arrest now.
I see. Still, one has to wonder why he would do such a thing. He didn't even have a connection to the victim, did he?
None that we know of.
Mr. Wright, have you anything to add?
I'm afraid I can't shed any more light on the matter.
About this victim, Mr. Shady Smith. His occupation was listed as traveler. An odd profession, to be sure. And that's all we know about him.
I'll arrange a follow-up investigation, Your Honor.
Good. Mr. Wright?
Yes?
7 years and you still haven't lost your touch.
Christopher Gavin was a man with much significance for me, both as a friend and a lawyer.
He was extremely talented, to be sure.
I needed two things before I could confront him. The first was a place where no injustice would be tolerated, this courtroom. The second was a man who would tolerate no injustice. In other words, a defense attorney. You, Apollo. Me? A dark time is coming for our legal system. A twisting of justice brought on by our very own court system. We have to set it right. Mr. Wright? Our work lies ahead of us, and I, for one, am looking forward to it.
Well, this seems like a good time to announce a verdict. This court finds the defendant, Mr. Phoenix Wright, not guilty. Court is adjourned.
April 20th, 4:28 p.m. District Court, Defendant Lobby number 3. Thanks, Apollo. You came through just like I thought you would. I'm pretty sure I didn't do a thing. In there. It was you who cornered Mr. The killer. I couldn't have done it by myself. You sensed it too today, didn't you? Your ability? Ability? Yes, a sensitivity I lack. You'll come to understand it soon enough. I'm just gonna look. Gonna see, has his boss again? No, his profile haven't changed. That's a mistake. You'll come to understand it soon enough. Wait, I wonder if he means... I have one question for the witness then. You say you saw the moment the defendant hit the victim. Is this true? Oh, of course it's true. What's this weird vibe I'm getting? What was that, Mr. Wright? You'll have to find the answer to that question yourself. The answer, right. Today was full of questions without answers, most of them about Mr. Gavin. What possible reason could he have had to commit murder? Perhaps you'll learn that in the days to come. Huh? Wait, you don't know, do you? This locket is the key. Huh? Oh, that reminds me. I met the girl whose picture is in your locket. Your daughter, right? That's right, she's my daughter. You know, you were right about this locket. Eh? I took this up his neck the night he died. But it looks like our dear Russian scam artist saw me. So the truth is, this locket really did belong to him. Wait, but that's perjury! You testified. You said that locket was yours. I said no such thing, actually. Huh? I merely said that it was a locket with my daughter's picture inside. A subtle distinction, but a distinction nonetheless. And it's true. Wait, but then why? Why was the victim wearing a locket with a picture of your daughter inside it? Sometimes the straightest path to the truth isn't the best one. Give it time. You're still just getting started with your career. Speaking of which, I may be out of a job. I work for Gavin Law Offices after all. Still can't believe I just saw Mr. Gavin get led away in handcuffs. Apollo? Yes? How about coming to work for me? Eh? You mean at the Wright & Co. Law Offices? I mean, there is not a single attorney in my generation that doesn't know it. I can't imagine that to be true, but... Wait, you're not a... Oh, I turned in my badge, yes. I'm not an attorney anymore. That incident 7 years ago. That legendary trial. And at the middle of it all was one man, Phoenix Wright. The case reached its sad conclusion, and he left law for good. Oh, his first loss. Have you ever thought about coming back to the courts? I'm not qualified to stand in a court of law, I'm afraid. Didn't you notice in today's trial? There was a single piece of forged evidence. Forged evidence? What are you talking about? I'm talking about evidence that shouldn't have existed. And not a magician's trick. One piece of evidence struck me as odd, it's true. It just seemed, well, too perfect. I'll bet this was the forged evidence. The card. Right, it has to be the card. Take that! You mean this? You mean this, don't you? I got this from your daughter, Mr. Wright. Yes, that card couldn't have been found at the crime scene. Why? Because the killer took it with him when he left, leaving the wrong card in its place. Luckily for us. The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud. A fraud? How can you be so sure? I would think the only person who can claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene, the real killer. My verdict was already handed down 7 years ago. Then, you really... Yes, I forged this card. One look at the crime scene should have told you it wasn't real. But you can't do something like that and call yourself an attorney. Who's calling themselves an attorney, Apollo? So it's true. The rumor is true. 7 years ago. None of that matters much now, does it? I punched him. It's your story from here on out, Apollo. Perhaps I can help you turn the next page. My office law address. Drop in if you like. Mr. Wright. Oh, about your uppercut? Try yelling, "Take that!" next time. I find it packs a little more punch. And Apollo, thanks for today. I had a good time. Wee. Okay, yeah, sure. And with that, Mr. Wright walked out the door. And that's how my first trial ended. A lot of mysteries went unsolved. And at the time, I had no idea they were all related. Every mystery that day connected by a single thread of logic. I'd find that out soon enough. My name is Apollo Justice, attorney at law, and this is how my story begins. The end. Yes, I would like to save my progress. Thank you. And that is actually the end. So, I shouldn't have pressed back, should I? Oh wait, no. That is actually that. Okay. So, next time we'll do Turnabout Corner. I was just seeing if there was any music, but there wasn't. So, I did not actually make an end screen. Hold on. Right. And then it's actually not like that at all. It's like that. And it's like that. And there we go. Yeah, so if you have enjoyed hearing my voice and watching me play, even though the mic is a bit off, then please do hit a little heart-shaped follow button. And if you want to see more of me with better voice quality, then head over to the YouTube page where I keep most of my previous streams as VoDs. It's the YouTube channel by the same name as this Twitch channel, and it's also linked on the Twitch main page. And if you're already watching this on YouTube, then please hit that like button and subscribe button are always just as appreciated. And if you want to catch me live, then head down into the description to click a link to the Twitch page. You never know, I might be live right as you're watching this. I mean, you'll at least know that I'm live, usually live, I should say, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. European Central Time. It was a bit later today because I had things to do and a new computer. And Oh, sorry. Oh, my ears. Yes, but I can also be live at other points during the week. Any time, really. Playing other things, like... This weekend I think I'll be playing a bit of Beat Saber to celebrate my new computer. And I will have practiced until then, so it won't be completely new. And try to stream that. It didn't work on on any computer I previously owned, but this one is a bit stronger. So maybe. It's also quite a bit thinner, so maybe not, but we'll see. But that is going to be it. So, bye. Bye 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 bye.